The shredder jammed again. I yanked the credit card statement out halfway through, the paper torn right through the hotel charge from Sacramento. My hands shook as I tried to feed it back in. Robert would be home in 20 minutes, and I still had 3 months of statements to destroy. That's when I heard his truck pull into the driveway, 15 minutes early. I shoved the remaining papers into my purse and kicked the shredder under the desk. By the time his key turned in the lock, I was in the kitchen stirring pasta sauce like nothing happened. Just another Thursday in our Milpitas home. Just another night of me, Amber, playing the devoted wife, while everything was about to explode. "Smells good," Robert said, dropping his tool belt by the door. After 12 years of marriage, I knew every sound he made. The specific clink of his keys hitting the bowl. The way he sighed when his back hurt from installing cabinets all day. "Your favorite," I said, not turning around. "Thought you deserved something special." I felt him pause behind me. That should have been my first warning. Robert always noticed when I was being extra nice. Guilt has a way of making you overcompensate. "What's the occasion?" His voice carried that careful tone, like he was testing the waters. "Can't a wife cook for her husband?" I forced a laugh, finally turning to face him. His dark eyes searched mine. After 12 years, he could read me like a blueprint. "Sure," he said slowly. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect." Another lie. They came so easy now. That was 2 years ago. 2 years since that night in the kitchen when Robert caught me shredding credit card statements. 2 years since my 4-month affair destroyed everything we'd built. If I could go back to that moment in the kitchen, I'd grab myself by the shoulders and scream, "Stop!" But I can't. And now I'm sitting in this empty apartment, divorced, alone, watching Robert's new life unfold on social media through my sister's account because he blocked me on everything. Let me back up. Let me tell you how I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. Robert and I met when we were 23 at a Warriors game. My girlfriends dragged me along, and his crew had the seats next to ours. He spilled beer on my shoes, apologized for 20 minutes, then asked for my number. I said yes because he had kind eyes and calloused hands, and something about the way he smiled made me feel safe. We built a life together, not a fancy one. Robert worked construction, I managed a dental office, but it was ours. We bought a small house in Milpitas, fixed it up ourselves. Saturday mornings at Home Depot, Sunday dinners with his huge Filipino family. We talked about kids but kept putting it off, waiting for the right time. Looking back, I think that's when the restlessness started. All my friends were posting baby photos and milestone moments while I was still doing the same thing, day after day. Managing appointment schedules, coming home to the same house, the same routine, the same everything. That's when Damon started working at the dental office. Dr. Chen hired him as our new hygienist in January. Damon was everything Robert wasn't. Smooth-talking, well-dressed, always smelling like expensive cologne instead of sawdust and sweat. He had this way of making every conversation feel like you were the only person in the world. The first time I saw him, I was refilling the coffee machine. He walked in wearing scrubs that somehow looked tailored, like he'd stepped out of a medical drama instead of real life. His smile was too white, too perfect, the kind that should have warned me he was trouble. "You must be Amber," he said, extending a manicured hand. "Dr. Chen told me you run this place." "I just manage the schedules," I said, suddenly aware of my chipped nail polish and the coffee stain on my sleeve. "Don't sell yourself short. I've been here 5 minutes and I can already tell nothing happens without your say-so." He winked, and I felt my cheeks flush like I was 20 again. Robert had rough hands from years of construction work. Damon's were soft, moisturized. Robert came home covered in drywall dust. Damon never had a hair out of place. Robert fell asleep watching the game. Damon quoted poetry during lunch breaks. I told myself the comparisons meant nothing. I was just noticing differences, the way you'd notice anyone new. But each observation felt like a tiny betrayal, a crack in the foundation Robert and I had built. "You're too smart to be stuck in this place," he told me one day over lunch. We'd started eating together, just co-workers grabbing a quick bite. Nothing inappropriate. You could be running your own practice. Right, I laughed. With what money? Money's just an excuse people use when they're scared to take risks. He leaned in closer. What are you really afraid of? The question haunted me. What was I afraid of? That my life had peaked? That I'd spend the next 30 years scheduling root canals and coming home to the same house, the same man, the same existence? Robert started working longer hours that spring. Some big commercial project in San Jose that had him leaving before dawn and coming home after dark. I told myself that's why I started staying late at the office. Someone had to close up, and Damon always offered to help. Your husband's lucky, Damon said one evening as we locked up, coming home to you every night. He's working late again. I tried to keep the bitterness out of my voice. If you were mine, I'd never stay late. The words hung between us. I should have shut it down right there. Should have reminded him, and myself, that I was married. Instead, I smiled and felt something flutter in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. That night, I found myself checking my reflection in every surface. Car windows, my phone screen, the microwave door. When Robert finally came home at 9:30, exhausted and covered in dust, I was annoyed instead of sympathetic. There's leftover Chinese in the fridge, I said, not looking up from my phone where Damon had just texted about a funny patient interaction. Thanks, babe. Sorry I'm so late. This project is killing us, but the overtime will help with the vacation fund. Our anniversary trip to Hawaii. We'd been planning it for 2 years, saving every extra penny. Suddenly, the idea of walking on beaches with Robert, the same Robert I'd walked with for 12 years, felt suffocating. Maybe we should postpone, I heard myself saying. Save more. Do it right. Robert paused, holding the takeout container. But we've been planning this. You've got the time off approved and everything. I just think maybe we should wait. What I really meant was, maybe I don't want to go with you anymore, but I couldn't say that. Not yet. The first time we kissed was in April. We were the last ones in the office, going over the monthly inventory. Our hands touched, reaching for the same folder. Cliché, right? But in that moment, with the fluorescent lights humming above us and the smell of his cologne making me dizzy, it felt like fate. We shouldn't, I whispered, even as I leaned in. Probably not, he agreed, pulling me closer. That kiss destroyed everything, though I didn't know it yet. I drove home in a daze, deleted our text thread, and crawled into bed next to Robert like nothing happened. He mumbled something about irrigation systems and threw his arm over me, and I lay there feeling like the worst person in the world, but not guilty enough to stop. The lies came easy after that. Working late, dental conferences that didn't exist, weekend inventory counts, girls' nights that were really nights at Damon's apartment in Campbell. Each lie required 3 more to cover it up, until I couldn't keep track anymore. The first big lie was a Saturday in May. Robert had planned for us to visit his parents in Daly City. His mom was making lumpia, his dad wanted help fixing the fence. Normal Filipino family weekend stuff that I used to love but now felt like an obligation. I can't go, I told him that morning, feigning disappointment. Emergency at the office. The whole computer system crashed and I'm the only one who knows the passwords. On a Saturday? Robert frowned, still in his boxers and holding 2 cups of coffee. Can't Dr. Chen handle it? He's at his daughter's graduation. I have to go, Robert. It's my job. He set my coffee on the nightstand, shoulders sagging. Mom's going to be disappointed. She's been cooking since yesterday. Tell her I'm sorry. Save me some lumpia? He kissed my forehead, and I had to force myself not to pull away. His lips felt foreign now, like a stranger's touch. Always do. Text me when you're done. Maybe we can catch dinner. I spent that Saturday in Damon's bed. He had this loft apartment with exposed brick, and art I pretended to understand. We drank champagne at 2 in the afternoon, and he read me passages from books I'd never heard of. When he traced his fingers down my spine, I didn't think about Robert fixing fences and eating his mother's cooking. I didn't think about anything at all. "You're incredible," Damon whispered against my neck. "How did you end up with someone so ordinary?" "Robert's not ordinary," I said automatically, then wondered why I was defending him. "He's just different." "Different," Damon laughed. "Is that what we're calling it?" I should have left then. Should have recognized the cruelty in his laugh, the way he dismissed the man I'd promised to love forever. But his hands were in my hair, and his apartment smelled like expensive candles, and I felt sophisticated, desired, anything but a dental office manager married to a construction worker in Milpitas. That's why I needed to shred the credit card statements. The hotel charges, the dinners at restaurants Robert and I never went to, the lingerie from stores he'd never seen. I paid the bills online, so he never saw the statements. Or so I thought. The night with the shredder, the pasta dinner, that was the beginning of the end. Robert ate quietly, watching me. I chattered about nothing, filling the silence with stories about difficult patients and insurance hassles. He nodded at all the right places, but something was off. "I stopped by your office today," he said as I cleared the plates. "Wanted to surprise you for lunch." My hands froze. "Oh?" "Yeah, Marcy said you were at a conference in Sacramento." The plate slipped, shattering on our tile floor. We both stared at the pieces. "Careful," Robert said softly. He grabbed the broom while I stood there, trying to think of something, anything to say. "It was last minute," I finally managed. "Dr. Chen asked me to go. New insurance regulations." "Right." He swept the broken ceramic into neat piles. "How was it?" "Boring. You know how those things are." "I wouldn't know. I've never been to Sacramento." Something in his tone made me look at him. Really look at him. There were new lines around his eyes. When had those appeared? His shoulders seemed broader, or maybe just more tense. This man who'd loved me for 12 years, who'd built our kitchen cabinets with his own hands, who still brought me coffee in bed every Sunday. This man I was destroying. "I can explain," I started. "Can you?" He dumped the broken pieces in the trash. "Because I found the credit card statement in your car, the one from the glove box, not the one you were shredding." My mouth went dry. "Robert! Who is he?" The question hung between us like a blade. I could have lied again, could have made up another story. But looking at him standing there in our kitchen, the kitchen where we'd shared 1,000 meals, where we'd slow danced to old songs while dinner burned on the stove, where we'd planned our future, I couldn't do it anymore. "His name is Damon," I whispered. Robert nodded slowly, like he'd expected it. Maybe he had. Maybe all those nights I thought I was being clever, he was lying beside me, knowing exactly where I'd been. "How long?" 4 months? He laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. 4 months? Okay. "Robert, please, let me explain." "Explain what? That you've been sleeping with another man for 4 months? That every time you said you were working late, you were with him? That when you kissed me goodnight, you'd just come from his bed?" Each word hit like a physical blow. I wanted to deny it, to minimize it, to make it sound less horrible than it was. But he was right. That's exactly what I'd done. "I don't love him," I said desperately. "It was just, I don't know, something different." "Different?" He tested the word like it was foreign. 12 years wasn't different enough? "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean, Amber? Help me understand. Because right now I'm looking at my wife, the woman I was planning to start a family with, and I don't recognize her." "Planning to start a family?" The words knocked the wind out of me. "What?" Robert pulled a small box from his pocket. Not a ring box. We'd done that years ago. This was different. He opened it, revealing a tiny pair of baby shoes. "I was going to surprise you next week. Our anniversary. I know we kept saying we were waiting for the right time, but I figured, why wait? We have the house. We're stable. We love each other." His voice cracked on the last part. "Or I thought we did." I stared at those tiny shoes, yellow and white, small enough to fit in my palm. All the futures we'd never have, all the children who'd never exist, all because I was bored, because I wanted something different. Robert. Tears ran down my face, but he'd already turned away. I'll stay at my brother's tonight. We can figure out the details later. Please don't go. We can work through this. Couples therapy, whatever you want. He paused at the door. You know what I wanted? I wanted to come home to my wife. I wanted to build a life together. I wanted those stupid baby shoes to actually mean something. He looked back at me, and the emptiness in his eyes was worse than anger would have been. But you threw that away for 4 months of different. The door closed with a quiet click. No slam, no dramatic exit, just Robert walking out of our life as quietly as he'd walked in 12 years ago. I stood in that kitchen for hours, unable to move. The pasta sauce had burned, filling the house with the smell of charred tomatoes and my own failure. I finally turned off the stove at midnight, threw the whole pot in the trash, and sat on the floor crying until I had nothing left. I called in sick the next day, and the day after that. I couldn't face Damon, couldn't pretend everything was fine when my world was falling apart. He texted constantly, worried about me. When I finally told him Robert knew, his response made me want to throw my phone across the room. So, was his response, now we don't have to hide. I called him immediately. My marriage is over, don't you understand that? I thought that's what you wanted. You're always complaining about how boring he is. I never said boring. But I had, hadn't I? Maybe not in those words, but I'd implied it 100 times. Look, Amber, I thought we were having fun. I didn't realize you were so attached to your situation. My situation? That's my husband, my life. Was, he corrected. Look, come over tonight. We'll talk about it. I'll make you feel better. The casual way he dismissed 12 years of marriage, like it was an inconvenient detail, finally opened my eyes. I thought about all those times in his loft, how I'd convinced myself it was sophisticated, but looking back with clear eyes, it was just sad. I'd been so desperate to feel desired, I'd pretended not to see the beard trimmings in the sink, the takeout containers piling up, the bathroom that always smelled off, despite the expensive candles. For all his designer clothes and expensive cologne, his fridge held nothing but energy drinks and old Chinese food. He'd made fun of Robert's simple tastes, but at least Robert knew how to cook a real meal, how to keep a clean house, how to build a life instead of just pretending to have one. That's when I realized how stupid I'd been. Damon didn't love me. He didn't want to build a life with me. I was just another conquest, another married woman to add to his collection. The signs had been there all along, how he never talked about the future, never introduced me to his friends, never made plans beyond next week. We're done, I said. Come on, don't be dramatic. No, Damon, we're done. Don't contact me again. Your loss, he said, and hung up. I spent the next week in a hotel, too ashamed to stay in our house, but with nowhere else to go. Robert had changed the locks. I found out when I tried to go back for more clothes. He'd left a suitcase on the porch with my things neatly packed, along with a note. Your lawyer can contact mine. My lawyer. The words looked wrong. This wasn't supposed to be happening. We were supposed to grow old together, supposed to have kids who looked like him and laughed like me, supposed to build the deck he'd always talked about and plant tomatoes in the backyard. Instead, I sat in a divorce lawyer's office, dividing up 12 years like splitting a check at dinner. California is a no-fault state, my lawyer explained, but infidelity can impact asset division if funds were used for the affair. What do you mean? She pulled out bank statements, the same ones Robert had found. These charges, hotels, restaurants, purchases, did marital funds pay for these? Every dinner with Damon, every hotel room, every gift I'd bought him with our shared credit card, it all added up to thousands of dollars stolen from our future to pay for my betrayal. Yes. That could impact the settlement. Your husband's lawyer is arguing you should reimburse the marital estate. Can they do that? They can try. How much are we talking about? I did the math in my head, feeling sicker with each receipt. $4,000. Maybe 5. Money we'd been saving for the Hawaii trip, for the baby furniture we'd never need, for the life I'd thrown away. About 5,000, I admitted. She nodded, making notes. We'll need documentation showing... But I'd stopped listening. $5,000. I'd pulled it from the emergency fund. The account we promised only to touch if the water heater broke or the roof leaked. I had drained our safety net to pay for hotel rooms with a man who didn't even care about me. Robert had been working overtime, sacrificing weekends to build that fund, while I spent it on champagne and lingerie and lies. I met with Robert at a coffee shop in Milpitas Square to discuss the divorce. This was 8 months after that night in the kitchen, California's mandatory waiting period plus all the paperwork and negotiations. He looked tired but somehow lighter, like a weight had been lifted. I'm keeping the house, he said simply. You can have the car, your retirement account, and half the savings. That's not fair. I paid for that house too. No, what's not fair is what you did. But I'm not trying to punish you, Amber. I just want this over with. Don't you want to fight for us? Don't you want to try? He stirred his coffee. Black, no sugar, same as always. I did fight for us, every day for 12 years, while you were with him. It was a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. No, he said quietly. It was a choice. 1,000 choices, actually. Every text, every lie, every time you decided he was worth more than what we had. I couldn't argue with that. He was right. Each step had been deliberate, each betrayal a conscious decision. What happens now? I asked. Now I move on. I fix up the house the way I always wanted. Maybe I'll meet someone who actually wants to be with me. Maybe I'll travel. I don't know. But whatever I do, it'll be without wondering where you really are. The divorce was finalized in September. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment near the Great Mall. Damon and I tried to make it work for about a month before he got bored. Turns out I wasn't so exciting when I wasn't somebody else's wife. No hard feelings, he said, like we were ending a casual business arrangement. It was fun while it lasted. Fun. 4 months of fun cost me 12 years of love. My sister Maria still talks to Robert sometimes. She tells me things I don't want to know but can't help asking about. He renovated the kitchen, apparently. Took down the wall between it and the dining room, just like I'd always said we couldn't afford. He's dating someone new, a teacher from Berryessa. They met at his nephew's school conference. She's nice, Maria said carefully. Different from you. Different how? She shows up. The words stung because they were true. For all my complaints about our boring life, I'd been the one who stopped showing up. Robert had been there every day, building our future board by board, while I was tearing it down for the thrill of something new. I see him sometimes around Milpitas, at the grocery store or getting gas. We nod politely, like strangers who happen to recognize each other. Last week I saw him at Target with her, the teacher. She's pretty in an understated way. They were looking at camping gear, laughing about something. The easy intimacy between them, the way she touched his arm, the way he smiled at her. It all looked so natural, so right. They were in the baby section, her hand resting on her small bump while Robert held up tiny onesies, blue ones with little elephants. The same pattern we'd looked at online once, years ago, dreaming about someday. He was making her laugh, doing that thing where he held the clothes up to his own chest like he was modeling them. I'd forgotten he used to do that, forgotten how he could make me laugh over nothing. I hid behind a display of diapers, watching them like some pathetic stalker. My heart was hammering so hard against my ribs I thought they might hear it. I gripped the handle of my cart until my knuckles turned white, terrified Robert would look over and see the ex-wife lurking in the baby aisle. She picked up a pack of bibs and showed them to him. They said, "Daddy's Little Builder," with tiny tool prints. Robert's whole face lit up. He kissed her right there in the middle of Target, not caring who saw. The way he used to kiss me before I made him self-conscious about public affection. A store employee asked if I needed help finding anything. "No," I managed to choke out. "I'm just leaving." I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried until my eyes were too swollen to drive safely. A family parked next to me. Mom, Dad, 2 kids arguing about who got to push the cart. Normal, whole. Everything I'd thrown away for what? For champagne at 2 in the afternoon? For someone who thought my husband was beneath me? The worst part is the details I remember now, too late. How Robert used to leave me notes in my lunch bag, how he'd warm my car up on cold mornings before he left for work. How he'd watch cooking shows to learn new recipes because he knew I got tired of the same meals. 1,000 tiny acts of love that I'd stopped seeing, stopped appreciating, stopped reciprocating. My therapist says I'm grieving. Not just the marriage, but the future I killed, the children who'll never exist, the anniversaries we'll never celebrate, the inside jokes that don't belong to me anymore. She says it's normal to feel this way, that consequences are supposed to hurt. But knowing that doesn't make it easier when I wake up at 3 in the morning, reaching for warmth that isn't there. It doesn't help when I find one of his socks mixed in with my laundry and break down sobbing over a piece of cotton. It doesn't change the fact that I'm 37 years old, 2 years older and infinitely more broken than when I destroyed everything. Divorced, and starting over with nothing but regret for company. My apartment is nice enough. Modern appliances, pool in the complex, close to work. Everything I thought I wanted. But at night, when I lie in bed alone, I think about our old house. The creaky step on the stairs, the way the morning light hit the kitchen, Robert's warmth beside me. I changed jobs after Damon. Couldn't stand seeing him every day pretending nothing had happened. Now I work at an office in Santa Clara. Longer commute, same type of work. Nothing's really different except everything is. Sometimes I drive by our old house. His house now. The kitchen renovation looks beautiful from the street. There are new flowers in the garden beds we planted together. His truck in the driveway has a "baby on board" sticker now. Maria confirmed what I already knew. His girlfriend is pregnant. The life I threw away is being lived by someone else. Someone who appreciates what I couldn't. Someone who sees Robert for what he is. A good man who builds things to last. I've started therapy, trying to understand why I destroyed everything. The therapist says something about self-sabotage, about fear of stability, about confusing drama with passion. Maybe she's right. Maybe I was so afraid of being boring that I created chaos instead. But knowing why doesn't change what I did. It doesn't bring back the 12 years I wasted. It doesn't unmake the 1,000 choices that led me here. My phone buzzes. A text from a guy I met on a dating app. He seems nice enough. Stable job, no kids, looking for something serious. We're supposed to have dinner tomorrow night. I should be excited, but all I feel is empty. His name is Keith. He's an accountant, divorced too. We matched because we both listed honesty as our most important value. The irony isn't lost on me. We've been texting for 2 weeks, and he seems genuinely nice. He sends good morning messages and asks about my day. Normal stuff that feels foreign now. I scroll through his photos again. He's handsome enough, likes hiking, has a golden retriever named Buddy. In one picture, he's at a barbecue, flipping burgers and laughing. He looks like the kind of man who'd warm up your car on cold mornings. The kind who'd fix things without being asked. The kind I already had and threw away. I know I should be grateful. Keith is a catch. But looking at his profile just makes me tired. It's the exhaustion of having to learn a whole new person, their favorite colors, their allergies, their family drama, when I already knew all of that about Robert. I don't want to learn someone new. I want the history I burned. I knew Robert took his coffee black with no sugar, that he was allergic to shellfish, that his left shoulder ached when it rained from an old work injury. I knew which side of the bed he preferred. how he liked his eggs, what jokes would make him laugh until he cried. 12 years of accumulated knowledge, worthless now. The apartment is too quiet. I turn on the TV for background noise, but it reminds me of Robert watching the game, so I turn it off. I try music, but every song seems to have a memory attached. The oldies station plays Stand By Me, and I'm suddenly back in our kitchen, Robert spinning me around while the spaghetti boils over. We were so young, so sure that love was enough. My sister calls. "How are you doing?" "Fine," I lie. "Amber." "I'm fine, Maria. Just tired." "I ran into Robert's mom at Ranch 99. She pauses, and I know she's debating whether to continue. "She said the baby's due in March. They've been married almost a year now. And they're naming him Daniel. Daniel. We'd talked about that name once, lying in bed after watching a movie about a boxer. Robert said he liked strong names, names that meant something. I'd said I liked it too, filed it away for someday. Now someone else's son will carry a name we'd only dreamed about. I don't even know what name he would have chosen for our child. We never made it that far." "That's nice," I manage. "She also said—" Maria trails off. "What?" "They bought a bigger house in Berryessa, near the good schools. Robert's doing really well with his business. He got that contract with the tech companies, the one he always talked about. The commercial renovation business he'd dreamed of starting. I'd always discouraged it, said it was too risky, that he should stick with residential work. But here he was, thriving without my doubt holding him back." "Good for him." "Amber, you need to stop punishing yourself." "I'm not punishing myself, I'm living with consequences. There's a difference." After we hang up, I look around my apartment. It's nice, modern, everything works. But it's not home. Home was the creaky Victorian with drafty windows that Robert always meant to fix. Home was the mismatched furniture we'd collected from garage sales and relatives. Home was the pencil marks on the doorframe where we'd measured our nieces and nephews, imagining our own kids' heights there someday. I pour a glass of wine, the expensive kind Damon taught me to appreciate, and think about calling Keith to cancel tomorrow's dinner. What's the point? I'll sit across from him pretending to be interested in his stories, comparing him to a ghost. It's not fair to either of us, but I won't cancel. Because the alternative is another night alone, scrolling through social media and torturing myself with glimpses of the life I abandoned. Robert's sister posted photos from their baby shower last week. Our old friends were there, people who chose him in the divorce. They're all smiling, celebrating the future I forfeited. In one photo, Robert's hand rests on his wife's belly while she opens a gift. His wedding ring catches the light. A new one. Not the scratched band I slipped on his finger 12 years ago. He looks content. Not ecstatic, not over the moon, just deeply, genuinely content. The kind of happiness that comes from building something real with someone who shows up every day. Because I know now what I didn't know then, that real love isn't about excitement or different or the thrill of something new. It's about someone who comes home to you every night. It's about building something together, board by board. It's about baby shoes in a box and dreams of the future. It's about showing up. And I learned that lesson 4 months and 12 years too late. Robert remarried a year ago. Maria showed me the pictures. I saw them through tagged photos on her account, since he blocked me on everything. Small ceremony in their backyard, our old backyard. His bride wore a simple dress and looked at him like he was everything, the way I used to look at him, before I forgot how lucky I was. In one photo, he's placing his hand on her pregnant belly, both of them laughing. They look so happy, so complete. The life we planned is now theirs, and all I have are 4 months of memories that aren't even worth remembering. That's my story. No redemption arc, no happy ending. Just a woman who had everything and threw it away for nothing. A cautionary tale about grass that looked greener but turned out to be artificial turf. Sometimes late at night I still reach for him in bed, My hand finds empty space where warmth used to be. And I remember that Thursday evening 2 years ago. The shredder jammed with evidence of my betrayal, Robert coming home early like the universe giving me one last chance to stop. But I didn't stop. I stirred the pasta sauce and smiled and lied, not knowing I was cooking my last meal in the kitchen of the life I'd never have again. 4 months of lies. That's all it took to destroy 12 years of love, and now I'll spend the rest of my life knowing exactly what I gave up, watching from the outside as someone else lives the future I destroyed.